an ex-player in disguise who we think is either Kevin Penny or Chris Riley. It's got to be one of those two, we think, who races basically against a fan who gets a bit of a head start if they answer some questions, that sort of stuff. But it's fun because it goes on long enough to keep you interacted with it, but it's not the whole half-time break, so it's not like it doesn't get boring and tedious. And there's a little bit of jeopardy on it and that sort of stuff. They're doing, light shows, laser shows, fireworks shows. The light showing that they're putting effort into it, and that's what I like. They're making it an event. Yeah. And that's what the whole thing needs to be. It needs to be, we'll go a couple of hours early because we'll do this, we'll do that. It's like Leeds has a bouncy castle. Leeds has all the cheer when we had cheerleaders. Yeah. They have them out. They have acts around. So you actually go to the stadium. You can go to the stadium 2 or 3 hours before. They've got a cafe. They've got face painting. They've got a DJ.
Yeah, what you need is your new audience, whatever that audience might be it kids or be it adults, be it anyone at all, really, to come away from that game being impressed by something that'll make them want to go again. And I think Warrington are really doing that well, and then the kicker is the team are playing quite well.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to the final televised game of the weekend, and probably the final game that we've got much to say about, to be fair. Catalans 18, St Helens 10. It was 10-all at half-time. 8,783 turned up, despite it being monsoon conditions to kick off the match. Robert Hicks was the drowned rat in the middle with the whistle. In terms of the stats, meters were fairly close, with Catalans edging those stats. Saints made more breaks, more offloads and more tackle busts, though. But they also made way more errors, 15-8 on the error count. Individually, Tony Gigo with a try, 5 tackles, 129 metres. And his try was a crucial try, to be fair. Greg Bird, 5 tackles, 125 metres. Matt Whitley, 48 tackles, 14 of which were marker tackles. And Alrix da Costa, 46 tackles. For the losing St Helens side, Tommy Makinson, 1 try, 5 tackles, 140 metres. Alex Walmsley, 136 metres. James Roby, which I think is a season high for an individual so far this season. 61 tackles, 16 marker tackles. And Morgan Knowles, 45 tackles, 14 marker tackles.
Wow. 61 tackles. I don't think I can do that in 6 games.
And 16 of those were off the back of a tackle he'd already made. I imagine that.
I imagine that went quite well on the
old Fantasy League.
Yeah, well, and I reckon they'll still have done well on the Man of Steel.
Well, actually, I haven't seen those because they weren't out when you arrived at my house, and we were chatting.
Well, while you're looking, Carsten says with these conditions, it should have been called a Saints home game. Outstanding defence by both teams, but the kick by Alba was perfect. Sam Moa with a perfect defensive game, and for man of the match.
Malcolm Matias said, "Shite English weather, karma, muddy stains, can't hack it in the wet."
Frogmore says, "So good of the French farmer to let him pay in his pig pen." And Hi, it's Frog again says, "Still undefeated, asterisk in England."
The next one comes in from St David, who was over there in Catalan for the game. He said, "The biblical pre-match deluge swung the game Catalan's way with their bigger pack. Smarter short kicking game in older heads in key positions to manage the game at the death. Ho hum, bring on the bitters onwards."
Paul Mac _77 says, "That second half defence by the Dragons seemed unbelievable until I realised most of their squad was foreign, because we know the French can't defend their own territory." Really? In all seriousness, Les Dracs could win the comp if the grand finals were held in Perpignan. Very hard to beat on their own patch. Glad to see Lucas Alba getting more minutes. So I was watching. I tuned into this for the last 20 minutes because I was playing with my new saw outside, and I had this on Sky Go. And at a certain point, I had to leave the saw alone because the game was just. It was. Apart from the last, I would say, 5 minutes when you knew the game was basically gone. As soon as Gigo scored that try, it was back and forth, and then fourth, and then fourth, and then fourth, and then Saints had a few chances on the old line and couldn't make it stick.
I think that was the thing that stood out for me most from this game was that first 20 minutes of the second half. It felt like the Saints had all the territory and all the possession apart from the penalty goal early on.
And when Tony Gigo scored in the last 10 minutes, it had felt like Saints had about 8 or 9 sets in Catalan's territory without the Catalans ever getting to halfway, if touching the ball in between sets at all. And then the Catalans got one break up field, basically. Mm-hmm. They got one penalty that got them into attacking position, and they had one attacking set, and they scored on that attacking set with a really good kick from Lucas Albert that Tony Gigo reacted very, very quickly to it. There must have been a call on the way to that play of the ball because they were so switched on to each other at that stage that you've got to say that was it very much surprised me that the team that would have the composure and the resilience, so on their own defensive line,
was Catalans,
and then the strike at the other end was the Catalan Dragons. That was surprising. I saw this team fall to pieces the week before, so it was very surprising. But
I won't say this was the biggest fuck of my Super Brew this year, but it certainly did not help.
I don't think many people would have gone for Catalan though. It was hard to predict after the weekend before. So in terms of individuals who played well, Sam Tompkins pretty much played in the halfbacks, even though officially on the team sheet he was named, on the Super League website, he was named at fullback. He didn't play at fullback at all, and I think everyone cottoned on to the fact that he was playing in the halfbacks, and he was really composed and controlling and popped up in the big moments, and kind of like what David was saying, and I'm sure it hurt him to say it, but those two experienced players, like those ex-Wigan players in the halfback positions for the Catalan Dragons in this game, did show a lot more composure than Saints is. I feel sorry for young Jack Welsby, who ostensibly was put into the standoff position in this game, but I rarely saw him come into the middle of the pitch to actually play the ball, be a ball player. So Danny Richardson had to control everything. Now, if there was ever a game that Danny Richardson had to be thrown into for Saints this year, it probably would have been the one where it was pissing down with rain, because he has a kicking game that his other two halfbacks ahead of him in the pecking order don't have. But it wasn't enough on its own, I don't think, in this game. And you've got to credit the experienced Dragons side. I think they did really well.
How do you feel that the play the balls and the rucks are being refereed this week?
I think the last 2 weeks. They're still giving penalties away if the ball hits a player behind, but they're not immediately going to their whistle
straight away
for a player being there.
Oh, right.
So if the ball doesn't hit the player, but maybe the player compromises the speed of the ruck slightly, but the team attacking don't lose any advantage because of them being there, they are not blowing the whistle. They're also not blowing the whistle for people falling off to the side. That they are very much trying to let the game flow. The only time they are stopping it with a penalty is when the ball actually hits the man.
Yeah,
it seems like
there's definitely been a change for the first few weeks.
It feels like it, doesn't it? A little bit.
Yeah, and I think it's massively for the better. Games are speeding up, and there's a lot less pissing about, because it just loses momentum, and you lose that break. So we go on to Game 6, Salford versus Hull FC. Salford 16 and Hull FC 23 to 3,609, referee by Gareth Ewer. Another set of incomplete stats means we can't go through the team stats of this game, but we'll just make them up. Do you want to take us through the winners and losers?
Yeah, individually, former Salford man Josh Griffin, 3 tries, 7 tackles, 2 clean breaks and 102 metres. Mark Minicello, 5 tackles, 170 metres. And mate Danny Houghton, 51 tackles were the people that jumped off the stat sheet for Hull FC. For the losing Salford Red Devils, they still had some valiant performances. Daryl Alfords, not a League One winger it seems, 6 tackles, 171 metres. Gil Dudson, 113 metres. George Griffin, maybe didn't quite have the impact on the game that his brother had, but still had 48 tackles, 14 of which marker tackles. And Joey Lussick, 1 try assist, 40 tackles.
So, fan views, Tom Andrews. Picking between FC and Salford winning is like choosing between being punched or kicked in the balls. Punched every time. Wonder if all the players in black and white managed to avoid scrapping with fans today. Emoji that we can't get. Or is that just the injured snake who does that?
Page said, solid hard-fought win by the boys. Sounded like Connor Wynn had a solid debut at full-back too. Whenever we play Salford, it always seems like a banana skin match, but the boys show grit and determination to win this one. Back up to 5th in the table
with a game in hand above the Dobbins should keep Tom quiet for the next 24 hours or until they get knocked out of the Challenge Cup next week. Haha, one can dream.
Joshua's granddad says, I've got to read this one now. I need to translate. A much improved performance, nothing spectacular but solid 80. Good debut by Connor Wynne, caught everything out in the air and linked well. We definitely have a good Griffin. A first FC hat-trick for Josh. Game management by Snide. Totally showing the Salford halves how it's done.
David Lum at Lum D said, one of the poorest games of Super League I've witnessed in a long time. Skill levels were shy. Luckily for Hull, the Red Devils didn't execute like they often do. Otherwise, it would have been a very different scoreline. Brave from Hull after losing Taylor, the best forward on the pitch, after 20 minutes, and with Kelly nowhere near fit. Young Wynn had a real solid debut, and we need Shaw, Connor and Ratu back quickly.
I was feeling sorry for myself when this was going on because I'd just gotten back from Lincoln, so I haven't actually seen this one.
So shall we talk about what you were doing in Lincoln instead then?
I believe the fans would like to hear about the game first.
Well, Dom did one of his charity runs, so if you want to support Dom's charity efforts, where can people go, Dom?
If you go to rundom.run, and there'll be a picture of me in a shark costume, not falling down.
Dom did fall down during this run, so extra sponsorship money should be given to him for the pain he had to endure.
And I am still wearing the Castleford Tigers pants for every Leeds home game based on the donations from you lot last year.
Fantastic. A man of his word.
So, did you see this game?
I saw the highlights. I saw the highlights of this game. My understanding is Hull picked up a couple of injuries during the game as well, and one of them I think was Andre Savelio, who I think injured himself with one of those blatant trips you'll see in any time. It didn't come off to effect actually because Jackson Hastings managed to get through and score in any case.
Has he got one game for that?
He's got a ban for that. All the charges came out of this game, I think, this weekend. So I'm not sure if it was such a dirty game. I mean, the penalty count was 7-9. I'm not sure if it was a dirty game or not, but it seems that way with what's come out. I think it sounds like it was a game where Hull managed to control things, and Mark Snade, going back to one of his former clubs, was able to do that for them. So, well done to them. From the tiny bits I've seen of this, I did see a couple of highlights that involved young Connor Wynne linking in. I also think that Salford scored a really nice looking try through Niall Evans, and I just think he's been fantastic so far this season. But it does seem like Salford couldn't quite consistently hit the mark this week, which is worrying for them. And it goes back to that point we talked about them not being able to train fully, like train 13 on 13. It's affecting maybe the flow of their moves. I don't know.
Well, there's been word out from the camp today that changes are going to be made if performances are improved, aren't there?
Well, they've got to try and turn something around. It's 4 losses in a row, and whilst maybe you'd expect them not to win every game like they were starting the season very, very well, the worrying thing in this one is it sounds like performance dropped as well. Whereas in the game against Wigan, they were still executing very well on attack. Their defence was starting to fail. This seems like their attack faltered a little bit too, and that's not going to help them because I think they're a very attack-orientated team this year.
So should we do the standings?
Yeah, do you want to go through them?
Warrington go on top with points difference after St Helens lose for the first time this year and drop to second. Both have 16. Castleford are clear on third for 12 points. Wakefield, Hull FC and Catalans have 10 points. Salford sit in 7th and are joined on 8 points by Hull KR, who had this week's biggest movers. Wigan, Huddersfield and London stay on 6 points, and Leeds lull everybody into a false sense of security on 4 points.
I'll tell you one thing we'll give Leeds this week, and that's stat line of the week, because in a losing effort for Conrad Hurrell to score 4 tries, 13 tackles, 4 clean breaks and 235 metres, the most by anyone this week. That's impressive.
So when he got 1 try, I almost tweeted him, get a hat-trick and I'm tattooing your name. And I had the tweet written and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do it. And then he got 4, I was like, I'm glad I didn't tweet that.
Yeah. In terms of players of the week, was there any players that you watched out that you saw in the games you watched that you'd say deserve this accolade?
There's a young upstart at Leeds Rhinos called Conrad Huddle who deserves player of the week. I love him.
I'm going to go Matt Cook. I think although a few of the other forwards around him put up bigger meters for Castleford, it really did feel watching